Santa Ana, California, a beautiful city located in Orange County, California, is known for its beautiful sights, sounds, rich Hispanic heritage. And it was actually named after Saint Anne and incorporated all the way back in June of 1886. However, just like a lot of beautiful cities in California, it's also known for its extreme levels of gang activity. And these particular gangs in Santa Ana seem to take orders and answer to Mayhem, or the Mexican Mafia, one of the most powerful prison/street gangs in the entire world. Sometime after midnight on September 2nd, 2013, two gang members associated with Mayhem, Irvin Teles and Jaime Prieto Rocha, were driving through Santa Ana. Jaime Rocha was behind the wheel. Irvin Teles was in the passenger seat. And a young lady by the name of Nancy Hammer was riding along with them. Nancy Hammer was an associate of these men and the street gangs that ruled Santa Ana. Her family had said she struggled with substance abuse and was also trafficking in narcotics for the gang. On this particular night, things took a deadly turn when the defendants, who were accused of spotting an unknown woman, 31-year-old Elizabeth G., is all the court transcripts would say. She was standing outside on the curb waiting for a friend to pick her up when she happened to mention a rival gang's name. Hearing that, Irvin Teles engaged with Elizabeth G. in a conversation when suddenly Irvin Teles pulled out a 9mm firearm and began shooting Elizabeth G. in the face. They then quickly drove away. However, Nancy Hammer, seeing this and all happening so fast, began to absolutely freak out and became hysterical. Irvin Teles, a cold-blooded killer, did not even hesitate. He quickly turned his firearm on Nancy and shot her in the face. She slumped onto the back floorboards, still alive. He then continued to shoot her in the face a second time, committing an act of brutal, savage murder. They drove to the city of Newport Beach, California, where they disposed of the body, dumping the body somewhere near the Newport Bay Bridge off Pacific Coast Highway in Newport Beach. Early that morning, Rocha is accused of driving south toward Oceanside. He's accused of calling a company to request towing. Shortly thereafter, Oceanside Police Department officers arrested Jaime Rocha. And then a little bit after that, Nancy's body was discovered. The ensuing investigation would link the murder to a widespread operation that the federal government and the state government were conducting, dubbed as Operation Smoking Aces, into the Orange County Jail, and how the Mexican Mafia had completely infiltrated that jail, running drugs, controlling guards, controlling everything that was going on behind the bars, as well on the streets.
High officials said that this is a crushing blow to the Orange County Mexican Mafia. Now, we're told that the majority of the defendants you'll see are already in custody, but 9 others were arrested between last night and this morning. Now, FBI and local officials announced the federal indictment today and said this is the result of a years-long investigation that is ongoing. A grand jury indictment charges 31 Orange County Mexican Mafia members and associates with alleged racketeering, murders, attempted murders, drug and gun charges. From 2016 to April 2022, Johnny Martinez, Robert Aguirre, and Dennis Ortiz are accused of being the leaders of criminal activities in OC and within OC jails and prisons. Officials say some of the other defendants served as shot callers, mouthpieces, representatives, and secretaries. Now, officials say that the OC Mexican Mafia preyed on vulnerable communities using fear and violence, controlled the majority of street gangs throughout OC, and received quote-unquote taxes paid by gangs to allow them to deal drugs in that area. Officials say they're connected to violent crimes, including murder. United States Attorney Tracy Wilkinson said many neighborhoods felt the impact of their destructive conduct, and this disrupts operations of the Mexican Mafia.
Have we, eradicated the Mexican Mafia? The answer is no. But this is a continuing investigation, and I think that the message that this case sends is that if you rise to power in that vacuum, we will come for you. When you're talking about prison gangs and when you're talking about the spread that they have, and certainly when you're talking about the Mexican Mafia, they have reached far beyond Orange County into not only the rest of the counties locally here in Southern California, but the rest of the United States.
Today's indictment charges high-level officials in the Mexican Mafia. The indictment charges the Southern California gang leadership, in other words, those involved in using their power to organize and direct violent criminal activities committed by gangs throughout Southern California.
Now we're told that the defendants will be moved into federal custody and arraigned. Some of the charges can potentially carry a penalty, a maximum of life in prison. Live in Orange, Kimberly Chang, KTLA 5 News.
I want to focus on what I will call the jails indictment, which outlines a criminal enterprise run by the Mexican Mafia that controlled drug trafficking and extortion activities throughout the LA County jail system. The indictment focuses on Jose Landa Rodriguez, who was the leader of the Mexican Mafia in the LA County jail system, and who oversaw a group of gang leaders and soldiers who imposed his will on inmates in the facilities. The jail's indictment alleges that Landa Rodriguez controlled all drug trafficking in the jails. The organization would arrange for cocaine, methamphetamine, and heroin to be smuggled into the jails, often through accomplices who hid the drugs in body cavities and who got themselves intentionally arrested on minor charges. The organization would then sell drugs to inmates. The Mexican Mafia had a range of supporters that participated in the racketeering enterprise. For example, there were a number of associates who smuggled drugs into the jails, and there were people who passed messages directing criminal activities between those in the jail and gang leaders on the streets. This communications network, which often included wives and girlfriends, was a vital link that allowed incarcerated Mexican Mafia leaders to communicate with gang leaders on the streets. But wives and girlfriends were not the only link to the outside world. This morning, we also arrested a lawyer who is accused of being a key facilitator for the organization. If they are convicted, many of the defendants will face decades in federal prison, and they will be scattered to prisons all over the country, far from their power base here in Southern California. With this morning's operation, we have delivered a significant blow to a cold-blooded prison gang and their associates. The jail's indictment dismantled a criminal enterprise that affected many of the jail's 15,000 plus inmates and the overall security of the facilities.
To United States Attorney Tracy Wilkerson, followed by David Jaffe. Tracy?
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Tracy Wilkerson, and I am the United States Attorney for the Central District of California, which includes the county of Orange County. This morning, prosecutors unsealed a federal grand jury indictment designed to deliver a crushing blow to the Orange County faction of the Mexican Mafia, a group of 3 longtime gangsters who controlled the vast majority of the Latino street gangs in this country. Today, with the charges against the 3 made members of the Mexican Mafia and 28 close associates, we are delivering a powerful message to the prison gang and the street gangs affiliated with them. Their violence, drug dealing, extortion, and other criminal acts being committed in our local communities will result in the most severe consequences under federal law.
What's going on, you guys? Welcome back to another episode of Greenlit Gang TV. Much love, much appreciation. Hope you guys are checking out the channel. We got over 11,000 subscribers. That is huge for me. This is my 1 year. This month marks a year of doing this channel. And, my goal when I started was, in the beginning, I really didn't know what my goal was, to be honest. I'll never forget the first video I did. I was so bummed out because the views weren't doing very good. I checked back a week later and I had 400 views, and me and my girlfriend were high-fiving and hugging like I just won the lottery. So just kind of gives you an idea. I didn't know what my goals were. A few months ago, it became that I wanted to hit 10,000 subscribers by my 1 year marker. And I think it's like the 3rd week of October will be my 1 year, and we've surpassed that. So I think I can maybe get to 12,000. I am nothing without you guys. I'm nothing without the people that watch this channel, comment, engage, good, bad, doesn't matter. You guys go at me, doesn't matter. I love it all. So just wanted to give a big thank you. But anyway, covering this case, we're going back to 2013, which does not seem that long ago, but it is. That's back when Diddy was still the man. That's back when P. Diddy was still running the show, calling shots in the music industry. And here we are about 11 and a half years later, and he's just, there's a term in pop culture now, no Diddy. It's funny how things change. But anyway, really quick, not really quick, but getting into this. So doing this story, I realized the layers to it. You know, we're talking at my intro there, I was talking about Operation Smokin Aces, which was literally happened. This crackdown came in the same month as Nancy Hammer's murder. So Nancy Hammer's killed Labor Day weekend by Irv Tellez and Jaime Rocha. Okay, they are associates, hangers-on. It said Irvin, and I don't want to underplay it. It said Irv Tellez was a lot more active. He actually had a pretty strong foothold within the gang. I don't want to say he's a full-fledged member of the Mexican Mafia, but he was a tight associate. Jaime Rocha was he just wasn't, I'm trying to word this right, just not as much of a recognized killer as Tellez was, even though Rocha was older. So anyway, this murder happens with Hammer, which, unfortunately when I was reading through it, you're wondering why she's hanging out with these guys a little after midnight, and it's because basically Hammer had, like her family said, she had battled addiction, she had battled drug issues for a long time. She became a dealer for these guys and for the gang, which unfortunately is common. When you struggle with things like that, a lot of times it's easier. You can speak to it in experience. It's easier to, if you kind of get your head on straight enough or come up on some money, to buy in bulk and begin to deal, and you can support your habit that way. As a recovering addict, I can tell just in her mugshots. There's obvious mugshots where it's like, okay, obviously they picked her up. She's in the county jail. She's very under the influence at the time. But I'm talking about, maybe you guys can speak to it, her face is just, she's got that hardened look on her. She's got that addict face. I have it still. I think it aged me. 10 years of opiate abuse aged me a little bit. And, I have mugshots of me where you can, obviously I'm just blasted out of my mind, but you can just tell in pictures of people that struggle with addiction. It's just a look. It's just a hardened look. And I'm not talking about when they're loaded. And if you ever struggled with it or know somebody that has, you'll know what I'm talking about. So anyway, she gets picked up that night. They run into a girl, and I can't really find out if they knew this girl, this Elizabeth G., because I'm just kind of like, oh God, the timing of them driving by, she mentions a rival gang's name, and they shoot her. I'm just like, there's got to be more. I know they pulled over to talk to her, so there had to have been some sort of connection. There had to have been some sort of recognition that they knew one another. It's after midnight, okay, so she's just on the curb. She said she was waiting for a friend, talking to a friend, but there's more to it. They all knew each other. There's things that were going on. Transactions were taking place. So anyway, Hammer obviously sees the shooting. She freaks out, which, of course, all of us would. Tellez doesn't even hesitate, shoots, kills her. Then they end up dumping her. The Newport Beach, basically by the bridge. It's horrible. And they pretty much quickly connect Jaime Rocha with, Irvin Tellez. And, it was just... her body, so they killed her early morning hours of September 2nd. By 8:45 a.m., the Newport Beach Police Department had responded to a call of a woman lying face down underneath the Bay Bridge near the intersection of East Coast Highway and Bayside Drive. So they determined the woman was deceased. They identified the victim, 28-year-old Nancy Hammer, resident of Santa Ana, California. They also concluded, the coroner did, that the cause of death was a gunshot wound. Okay. And at the time, it was an ongoing investigation, but they pretty much quickly identify Rocha. They quickly identify Irv Tellez, because Rocha, who is facing a ton of time, right, he flips on Tellez, okay? So these guys get wrapped up in it. Rocha ends up copping out. He got a pretty sweet deal. He only got 16 years. For basically... he murdered this girl, and he only got 16 years. Irv Tellez is a different story. He gets sentenced to over 100 years. His ass is booked. He's going away for a very, very long time. I never know, though, down there in Cali, how y'all Cali people roll. Probably let him out, thanks to your governor, in about 2.5 years for good behavior. That's a joke. I'm kidding. But, no, I'm serious. The sentencing stuff is crazy at the state level, and that's why... these gang members and these gangs, obviously if you're in the prison system, okay, and if you're let's just say a full-blown Mexican Mafia member, you're doing life, double life. You don't care if the feds come, you don't care if the state come. You do in the sense of, if you're comfortable where you're at, you don't want to be moved to some different federal prison. Maybe you go up to a way more max security prison, although if you're a full-blown Mexican Mafia member doing double life, you're probably in a very high max security facility. But the point is, someone like a Rocha who's still thinking, well, I didn't actually pull the trigger, but they're going to get me for murder because I'm a part of this crime and they can charge me the same way they can charge Tellez, who pulled the trigger. I'm going to flip and do 16 years state time, he'll get out in 10, which in the grand scheme of things isn't a lot. Tellez, like I said, he gets over 100 years. Insane, the cold-blooded murder, R.I.P. to Nancy Hammer. So, 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks later, on September 25th, 2013, at around 7 a.m., because they're always going to hit them early, 51 suspected gang members were arrested. 23 fugitives were actually still being sought at the time. And they said 129 cholos and their wives or girlfriends, and that's just straight up gang members, were indicted in a sweep that sprang from a crackdown on La M in the Orange County Jail because they had basically taken over and were running drugs out of there, had full control. And we're going to get into kind of one of their big dog leaders. And yeah, just absolutely crazy. So the person that was controlling all of this within the Orange County Jail and the prisons around that area and in Orange County, was a very infamous Mexican Mafia member. He was actually the oldest active member of the Mexican Mafia. And he went by the name of Peter Ojeda. So in 2013, he died in 2018, but in 2013, Peter Ojeda was a big dog, a big dog. And basically, this guy was he just wasn't a big dog because, hey, he's the oldest living guy, and we're going to give him no. Basically, when I read about him, they called him the death of a godfather. Peter Sana Ojeda. It said he reshaped the Mexican Mafia and paved the way for SoCal's gentrification. He had absolute power. They called him the OC Godfather. He was the absolute big dog of this. He was running the show. He ended up having a heart attack in 2018 at the age of 76. But back in 2013, they picked him up, they arrested him for this, and took down a big group that he was responsible for. But yeah, just absolutely crazy. And when they go after the Mexican Mafia, they come in full bore. So if you just, when I read the operation, like the task force for this, it was just absolutely insane. It was basically 1,000 officers from various local, state, and federal agencies, armed with search warrants, took part in Operation Smokin Aces. Raids of about 70 Orange County addresses. Think back, according to Santa Ana Police Corporal. And I don't know if you guys remember. I do, because I was in high school when this happened. There was a famous movie called Operation Smokin Aces, and that's kind of where they got it from. It hit theaters, and then a few years later, these guys name it that, and they go after the shot callers. If you guys remember from the movie Smokin Aces, they were going after the hitmen were going after a target that everybody thought was undoable. They didn't think they could get their hands on them. And, they all converge in a hotel. It's a bloody movie. It's actually really interesting, really crazy, so different. But anyway, that's what they kind of named it after. So they end up seizing pounds and pounds of narcotics, 22 pounds of meth, 101.5 pounds of heroin, 3 pounds of cocaine, 38 handguns, and 29 rifles. Just absolutely crazy. You see these operations pop up every few years. It's nothing new. But, it just gives you an idea and how these crimes tied into the death of Nancy Hammer. And I did this story because, we do these videos on these huge operations, right? And sometimes it's like 100 defendants, all these pounds of drugs, all of these. It doesn't really give you an idea of the harm and the destruction that is really caused. That's kind of why I like putting the story of Nancy Hammer into this, because she's just a 28-year-old girl. She's struggling with drugs. She's struggling with being around the wrong people. I'm not saying she's innocent in all this, but she was murdered, brutally murdered. She had family that loved her. She had family that cared. And as someone who struggled with addiction in the past, I'm not saying, anything. I'm just saying that, I'm trying to word it right. I'm just saying that Guys, it can happen to anybody. I knew people where I'm from, normal people that were not gang members like me. I was never a gang member. I was never out there putting in work or doing any of that. But if you are active in the streets and you're dealing a little bit on the side, like I was, you're moving a little bit of weight to support a habit, thinking you're cool, it's just one time. I know for a fact Nancy Hammer did not get in that car thinking her life was at risk. And pretty soon, it takes a left turn and then another left turn, and she's face down on a beach dead. So anyway, much love. Appreciate you guys checking out the channel. Until next time, peace.